Hey, everybody, welcome back to this episode of Think Business Live. This week we're having a mental awareness week. I thought it was important with everything that's going on with COVID and a lot of the anxiety that I'm hearing about, not only from friends and clients and family and on the news because of what's going on with COVID. But I also recently watched a documentary called The Weight of Gold, which was basically about Olympic athletes talking about their struggle with depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts. And I thought, I'd love to dedicate a week to mental health awareness. And just coincidentally, Josh, who, my whole family has known forever, reached out to me, and I'm really excited to have Josh Schaefer, Eric Levitz, and Brian Surasky with the AZ House in Jerusalem, Israel. So what time is it there, fellas?
It is
7 p.m.
7 o'clock.
Okay, good. It's noon here. I appreciate you all being on the show. The AZ House is addiction recovery center, and I want to talk to you guys about really kind of what programs you offer, and then I want to kind of dive a little bit deeper into what does addiction look like. So let's start and just kind of give people kind of a flavor of the AZ House. Tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, so the AZ House is a free treatment center. It's a residential treatment center, and it's also a long-term treatment center. Our program is 8 months, and it's broken up into 2 phases. The first phase is what the public or the layman would understand as the intensive inpatient portion. And then the second phase of our program is like a 3/4 house portion. And so for the first 2 to 3 months, the guys are in groups. They have a house job. They have a schedule. They do not have a phone. They do not carry money. They are always supervised. And the goal of that portion of the program is that they work the 12 steps, that they develop a relationship with the recovery community in the house and outside of the house at the meetings that we go to, which is daily, and that they work the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous with a sponsor. We don't facilitate that. We're not really allowed to, so to speak, because of the traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous. We're not an Alcoholics Anonymous house, but that's the program. They do work a 12-step program under our roof.
Yeah.
Then the second phase of our program, they are given back their phone, able to carry cash, and are to find a job, start working, and once they are able to pay rent, they are able to, they earn extra privileges, a curfew that they can stay out at night, overnights, once a month. And ultimately, that portion of the program is designed for them to reconnect with the outside world, establish themselves in the community, save money, and learn a balance of their recovery and work life and personal life, and ultimately move out on their own once that balance of 8 months is completed, or a little longer, depending on them. So that's in short what we do.
That sounds like it sounds like you kind of strip away a lot of distractions. So from what it sounds like to me, so you can kind of really deal with the issues at hand and just kind of evolve your level of consciousness and awareness without those distractions. Eric, as the founder and executive director, what was it that got you to start AZ House in Israel?
I went to the birthright trip in 2015-16, right during that New Year's Eve, and someone offered. I extended my trip, visited a treatment center. I was at home, not completely happy in the line of work that I was in, and in a very transitional, place in my life. I had just under 4 years of recovery by then, at that time. And so this guy offered me a job. I had already fell in love with Israel. And I said, okay, no problem. I'll take the job. Let me run home and pack my things, and I'll see you in a few weeks. And that's ultimately what I did. while I was at that center, I became friends with the father of their last resident. And that place ended up closing shortly after I got there. And that father connected me with a guy named Moshe Zalman. And basically we sat down at the table, discussed this idea to open up a free treatment center in Jerusalem. And Moshe Zalman said, "I'll help you guys do that." And it was very quick. It was kind of by chance. It was super exciting, and we had that conversation. And 2 months later, we're opening the doors. So that was September 1st, 2016.
Right. That's great. I mean, I love the story of just I don't believe in coincidences, and when you're in alignment, a lot of things just kind of come along your path to make it work. So I love that story. And so Brian, so you're the co-director. Josh, you're doing operations, but I want to dive into a little bit away from the business and want to dive into addiction, right? I want to dive into right now. I'm hearing so many stories of during shelter in place. There was more drinking. Drugs. There seems to be more drugs in general just going on that I always hear about. How does somebody know if they're addicted, and then how do they even recognize that? Let's start there. How does someone define addiction?
I'll jump in for just a second. I mean, with everything going around and people having to be quarantined and not working and not having jobs, it's going to be very difficult for a lot of people. And we see the mental health statistics are rising. A lot of people are struggling with mental health a lot more, and it's going unrecognized because the government is doing so much right now, all the governments everywhere to help with COVID-19, that the mental health issues are kind of getting pushed on the side. And we're seeing a big rise in kind of these mental health issues that are not being addressed properly. And I think a lot of it does have to come from the isolation factor. I mean, addiction, when you're in active addiction, the isolation factor is a huge thing. You really are alone. And now putting people with these previous mental health issues, and you're putting them alone. They're stuck in their homes or wherever, not working, and it does cause people to not be able to cope. And a lot of with the mental health issues, when you can't cope, the easiest way to get out of your own head and to deal with these problems is to drink or to use drugs, because it kind of calms things down for them. Now, as far as the question you asked, John, was how do you really identify if you have a problem? And it is a little tricky in that area. First of all, you're going to have to really admit to yourself that you do have a problem by noticing that your life is really unmanageable. I can't go a day, I can't go an hour, I can't go 5 minutes without using drugs or without drinking. That's a first clear sign, I would say, is you need it. Like, I don't feel complete without it, and I can't live my life without it. Yeah. That's like a first symbol of like, yeah, I'm addicted because I'm dependent on this substance in order to continue my day. Right. And that's a sign of that.
But Brian, what does complete mean? So your term was, I don't feel complete. Can you define that a little bit more? I mean, as far as like what that means, because I know a lot of people who say, well, I have a drink. I have a drink at the end of the day. It's how I unwind, or this, that, and the other. I'm not suggesting they have a problem, but where's the line of having versus feeling complete, I guess?
Okay, that's a good question. Yeah, having a drink at the end of the day, even people who they're smoking a joint at the end of the day, they're going to work, they're living their lives, they go home at the end of the day, and so to relax and wind down, they have a drink, they smoke a joint. Like, I personally don't think that's the biggest deal. See, those people, who's to say, but I don't think that they probably have a problem. Now, when I was saying complete, I'm kind of referring to like, I'm going through the day feeling like something's missing unless I'm taking a drink, unless I have a drug inside of me. I don't feel whole. I feel like there's something missing, and I'm not not at my full potential, and I need it. It's really like I need it in order to continue my day and to feel like full. Because yeah. So.
All right. No, good. I hear you. I'm glad. I like that a little bit more detailed description. So now, if somebody's listening to this right now, anyone in the Think community, and is thinking, oh yeah, maybe there is an issue. I think whether it's what we're talking about today in business and life, I think asking for help is something that's really, really difficult. I mean, I see it as a business coach all the time. So Josh, where does someone find the strength to say, hey, like, I need help?
So I can relate it back to an experience that I was having. So I was living in America, and I had already been to a treatment center, and I had gone to the first treatment center, and I knew that I had a problem, but I didn't think I was an addict or an alcoholic, because I just this stigma of the stigma associated with it scared me, and I felt like a burden. And I was going through this period, maybe a few months after my first treatment center, and I was so depressed, anxious, isolated, that I didn't leave my bed for 10 days, and I was so miserable. And it was this internal. I was barely using drugs and alcohol at this point, but it was just those feelings combined with also needing drugs and alcohol, and sleeping a ton, and just being so depressed and sad. And it was so miserable. And I remember I called my family, and I was like, I need help in some regards. And that was the most painful phone call ever, because I didn't want to admit that I was having problems, and I also didn't want to admit that I couldn't fix everything on my own. And the whole idea, a part of an idea of recovery, is that you're not alone, and that there's a lot of people that are helping you with their own experiences. So I mean, it took me a lot of time to find the house, don't get me wrong, between that phone call and this, but it was the first step of just being I need help in some regards. It's hard, and it comes internally. Number one, no one wants to admit defeat. No one wants to admit that there's something bested them that they thought they could control. And it's very humbling and very difficult to admit that you need help. And for people that are struggling, I would say, I know exactly how you felt. I would say that both Eric and Brian have known how you felt. I would say every single person living in this house and in the recovery communities have felt the same way. And as much as it is difficult to pick up the phone and call someone, it feels that much better when you do.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you did, and for all of you. And let me ask you this. I want to talk about a little bit the stigma that you're talking about, right? I think today, I think we live in a world that's much more open, and it just feels like maybe stigmas are less. But what does the stigma feel like once you're in treatment? Once you're kind of feeling, once you've kind of gone to the point where you're out of your depression, anxiety, and on a clearer road. So what does it feel like versus before you ask for help, and then after you get help and you're on a road to recovery?
For me, I have a very simple answer. I'm a proud and sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And it's when you're on the outside, it's scary, because it's you think of drug addicts and alcoholics, people living under a bridge, and then you get into the program, and you're okay, everyone has felt the same emotions that I felt, and I'm proud to be a member, and I'm proud to help people, and I'm proud to be part of it. But for people that don't understand, it's difficult.
Yeah. And so let's I want to kind of talk to those people a little bit more, right? So Eric, maybe you can comment on this. As kind of a business owner, how do you market yourself? How do you get the word out about AZ House so people know that this is even available to them? I mean, because I think I know I have some family members that have been through treatments. They are still sober today, but they're expensive, and I don't know if a lot of people know about free services like this one. So how do you keep the word out so people know that they have a place to call?
Good question. So we have a few initiatives in place and systems in place. Obviously, we have a website, we have an Instagram, we have a Facebook page, we have a presence. We put out YouTube videos. We do, different. We have a newsletter, which we're constantly trying to create this community and this awareness of our existence within the public. And so we have all of these things in place. But I have noticed, or something that I think we can all agree on or notice, is someone always knows someone else, and that's how they get our number. I would say about 70% of the time, someone who knows us refers them. The other thing is when we first opened, we didn't have any of these systems in place, and within, I would say, 2 weeks, we had 7 guys. And we pretty much stay at a healthy capacity, if not at capacity, which is our maximum capacity is about 17 people, and we stay full. So it's a combination of these things. Definitely, we would love to have a larger presence, and we're currently doing different things to reach more people. I do want to say there, ironically, our statistics are as good as it gets, better, and we're free. And the crazy thing is that we don't have a waiting list out of the door, because the irony is that there's a bit of skepticism when they hear free. They think cheap. They think goodwill. They think second rate. And one of the biggest things that I could say is the reason we're so successful, the reason that this house does such a good job, is because we're free. That's one of the keys of our entire success, is not charging families, not putting a dollar sign above our residents' head. There's no conflict of interest in that department. We genuinely want to help people, and it shows in our statistics. That's our hurdle.
How do you, is it through donors that you stay open?
Yes, it's 100% donations from the public.
Yeah. So I'd like to. That's a beautiful thing that to the donors and to all of you that are doing such great work on a daily basis. I know. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. But I have done a bunch of research and read I've read a lot of books, and I know a lot of people who are in recovery. And one of the things that I hear is that when they're in a AA meeting or NA meeting, right, their ego is at their car doing push-ups, waiting for that person to get out of that meeting to just kind of go in. And so I can't imagine, nor do I pretend to understand kind of the difficulty of a day-to-day day of somebody who's in recovery. But with the three of you being in recovery, my question to you is, when you are having those days, how do you get back to center so you can, just kind of get back to your groundedness?
Brian?
All right, I'll jump in. So there's a line that I like. It's like, this program, our house, it doesn't teach any really new concepts. It's teaching things that pretty much most people learned in kindergarten: how to share, not to lie, don't steal, don't be mean, things, basic general principles of life that most people do. Now, as an addict, as an alcoholic, if I don't follow those principles and I don't live my life trying to act out in the best of those principles to the best I can, the only difference between me and someone else who's not an addict is my life's on the line. If I start acting out in those ways and lying and stealing and cheating and doing those things, my life is on the line. That's going to eventually lead me back to using and to drinking. And if I go back to using and drinking, most likely I will die. So that's like the big difference. Like, we're not teaching things that won't help everyone. The program of AA, which is really what our house is based on, it's not teaching anything that wouldn't be helpful to anyone who would do it. It's just that it's so important to us because of how dire the circumstances are for us at the moment. Now, if I'm having a bad day and my ego pops up and things like that, because it's going to happen, we're human, no one's perfect. There's going to be days where you're going to be aggravated, you're going to be annoyed, you're not going to be the most, what we like to call, spiritually fit, where things are just going to get to you. And when those days happen, it's really what the program, what we try to teach people is, you got to take a step back from these things. We have to have trust in the program, in a power greater than ourselves. That is the essence of the AA program. There is a power greater than us that can restore us to sanity, and we have to just we know what the right thing is to do. We definitely know what the wrong thing is. We don't always know. It's sometimes a gray area what the right thing is to do. We always know what the wrong thing is to do. So as long as we're not doing the wrong thing, we're trying to do the next right thing. Even in those days where things aren't, you can always come back to center. It's really about staying in the moment. These things happen to me. They bothered me, but you know what? Life goes on, and I'll get through it as well.
Yeah. I love what you're talking about. So yesterday and the day before, I had my therapist on the show, and the day before that, a good friend who's a clinical therapist. And a lot of what you're talking about, they mentioned in their own way. But the idea of surrendering, the power of a pause, stepping back, and being spiritually fit, and the power of gratitude, which I think kind of, sums up a lot of that. Josh, any thoughts on that?
It's for me when I'm struggling, just to step back a second, it's like there's certain times I'll wake up in the morning and I'm angry and I'm pissed about something. And I've rewired my brain coming into this program, knowing that just because I'm angry right now, I don't need to let it, ruin my whole day. And that's taken a lot of time to get to that point. And sometimes I do let it ruin my whole day. But, when I'm struggling, I call my sponsor, I call a friend, I talk with Eric O'Brien, I talk with someone else in the house, I call someone else in recovery. But the thing that's been the best thing for me also is helping someone. So if I'm struggling, I go up to the new guy who's, X amount of days sober, and I say, how you doing? And we just talk. It's not like, I'm not trying to solve, his crisis at the moment. I'm just trying to see how he's doing, start a conversation and help them in any way that I can. And by getting out of myself, I feel a lot better. And in terms of gratitude, our whole program is built on humility and gratitude. And by being grateful and being humble, it's a sense of, it ties that back into that sense of giving back, and also that sense of I am so happy and thankful for the opportunities that I have. I don't want to go back to the way that I was living before, so I'm going to keep doing what I was doing.
Yeah, I love what you're talking about. And yesterday, my therapist, who was on, Dr. Paul K, talked about humility, gratitude, but also with an emphasis of, you got to pick up the phone and share and reach out and have that human connection, right? I mean, that is so important, especially today. I mean, how great is it that we're, I'm in Michigan and you're in Israel, and we're sitting here, talking, and who knows who will listen to this, who really needs to hear a lot of these words. So I think it's great. Any thoughts, Eric, on gratitude or anything that's been talked about?
Sure. Gratitude. Gratitude, I think, is like our key to happiness. And, the whole house is built off of this idea of gratitude. I think, this will take it right back to the place being free, is that I think one of the worst positions that an addict can be in is a position of demand or entitlement. And, when they go into very expensive treatment centers, they need their bed to be perfect, and they need their hot tub to be the right temperature, and they need their fancy chef to cook them food, all this stuff. But when they walk into our house, it sets the stage for their reality. Generally, it actually is their reality. They walk in with nothing. And so they're kind of put into a position of gratitude. You're here for free. You're here by the grace of somebody else's time and the grace of somebody else's dollar. And for everything that you have, you need to show gratitude. Gratitude is an action word, and I need to act out this gratitude on a daily basis. You know, me as someone that has a job, the way that I show my gratitude for the job is I do the best job that I can. For someone who's starting from the beginning, they have a bed. The way that they show their gratitude is by making it. There's a lot of people that don't even have a bed to make. So I need to show that thanks and that gratitude. And you can find a way to show gratitude for everything that you have. And the more you do that, and the farther you are away from ego, and you're in that like a realm of humility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, that was great. I love this. You know, remembering all the little things are so important. And as we come to an end, though, I do want to talk about the ego a little bit, because you guys have all brought it up. It's a very powerful piece of all of our personalities. Talk about I really don't have any specific questions. I want you guys to kind of freeform whatever you think your answer is. But how do people get past their ego if they need your services and get to you or to any treatment center?
By drinking lots of alcohol.
Well, no. I mean, I know that. How do they override and say, okay, how do they quiet the ego so they can, rise up a little bit into, where they need to be?
I mean, I'll reiterate my answer. A lot of times it takes them drinking a lot of alcohol.
No, I see. Okay.
Of course, the ego pops right back up after they feel better after a couple weeks. But generally, John Barleycorn beats them into a state of submission that they're genuinely like helpless, and they're begging for help, and tears are coming down their face, and they're, in a perfect world, as hard as it is to watch and as sad as it is, they walk in broken. There's no ego.
Yeah.
As for building back up and how to deal with it, then I'll pass it to Brian.
Okay. Brian.
No, just reiterate what Eric said. It's more difficult. It's more common that we see people coming in who have lost everything, who are broken, who pretty much have cut all ties with family, with friends, and really the ego kind of at that point is out of the picture because they're willing to do anything because they really have no other option. Now, on the other hand, there are people who do need the program and do need rehab who haven't lost everything. It's more rare, but there are plenty of people who are in this program who, when they came in, they still had a job, they still had a family, they still had a car, they weren't in trouble with the law. It does happen. Now, for people like that, it's much more difficult to put the ego down, put it aside, and to say, hey, like, I need help. It's really, a lot of the time people, they're pushed in by family members who say, maybe you need help. But for them to truly admit it to themselves, it takes a big man who still has everything, still can do everything, and still has a job and a family to be like, there still is a problem there. Yeah. And it takes normally people who have that, it takes them a lot more years of drinking and using drugs, even if they haven't lost everything, before they realize, I am having a problem with this. Like, I want to stop, but I can't. Yeah. It's like, I have so much willpower in everything else in my life. I can keep a job. I can do well in my job. I can be successful, do well in my family, but I want to stop drinking, but I can't. Then I must have a problem. So if you can ask yourself the question, like, and you want to stop drinking, but you can't do it, then that's probably a clear answer to, hey, like, I probably need to get some external help for this.
All right, good. Well said, guys. And besides AZ House, what are some other resources for people around the world if they need to pick up the phone and call someone, while they're listening to this even?
I would say you're asking in regards to like a 12-step program or another treatment
general, I mean, does somebody call Ben Ford? If someone's in Israel, they can call you. If someone's willing to travel to Israel, are there, where do they pick up the phone? Do they call a therapist? Like, where do people go? What's the first step?
So I would say, so if you're in the States and you're looking for some sort of treatment in the States, I would call the Absolute House, the Leah House, the Keating Center, the Lantern. All these places are just like ours.
Common Ground. Yeah, right.
They're definitely our house. They're based in Cleveland. And if being in Israel isn't important, or the Judaism aspect, if that's not important to you, I would definitely suggest one of those places, especially if you're not trying to travel or the COVID crisis. Those are great places. I'm friends with the directors. I would look in a phone book and call your local AA office, AA hotline, get to a meeting, search online. There's a lot of different 12-step fellowships. I would potentially get with a therapist and ask them for help. Same thing, ask them to put you in touch with, ultimately, if you're dealing with drug and alcohol addiction, I would say 98% of the time, if you're the one picking up the phone and you're the one who wants the help, get to a 12-step program. That'll be your best bet. Before you start throwing your money in all these different directions, get to a 12-step meeting.
All right, good. Good, great. I appreciate it. All right, guys, I'm going to end with this question. One thing you're grateful for today.
I'll go first. I'm grateful for this every day, and that's the AZ House, because it changed my life. It's given me purpose, and it's ignited a passion inside of me that's given me a ton of meaning, a ton of friends, and like a life beyond my wildest dreams.
Right.
On top of the beautiful life that I've been given, I'm grateful for Brian and Josh.
All right, good.
That's very nice. I'm grateful for all of you. I'm grateful for this opportunity. Really, what I'm grateful for today is to piggyback on what we were saying before, is that today I have the ability that I can face my problems and live life on life's terms. If the problem does arise in my life, I'm able to face it. I'm able to understand why I'm having this problem, understand why I'm having this feeling, and I don't need to drink or use drugs over it today.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I'm grateful that Josh reached out to me and asked if you guys, there's an opportunity to be on the show, because this was a perfect time, and I appreciate it. And Josh, it's great to see you doing great. It's great to see you all doing great and doing great things and helping a lot of people. So just before, as we close, just tell people how they can get a hold of you if they need to.
azhousejerusalem.com. We have a website, we have a Facebook page, we have an Instagram. All of our contact information is there. Our email is also azhouse18@gmail.com. You can really reach us at any time of the day or whatever. I mean, we're happy to help whoever, whenever.
All right. Josh, Eric, Brian, I can't thank you guys enough. I appreciate you being vulnerable and talking about your own stories and all the great work that you're doing to help so many other people. So thanks for being on the show, and thanks for sharing. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.